Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Brenner, Senior Vice President of Content at Cyber Risk Alliance. Welcome to this SE Media In Focus, sponsored by our friends at Fortinet. Joining me today is Derek Manky, Chief Security Strategist and VP of Global Threat Intelligence for Fortinet's FortiGuard Labs. And we're going to pick up on, we're going to continue our conversation on the key takeaways from Fortinet's latest threat landscape report. So Derek, welcome back.
Thanks, Bill. It's always great to speak with you.
So we recently spoke about last time we painted a snapshot of the active threat landscape and latest trends from the second half of 2023. One of the key themes from the report that vendors need to more closely adhere to, I would think, is vulnerability disclosure best practices and improving their cyber hygiene and patch management practices. What's I almost feel like this is a duh question coming from me, but what's driving the urgency and timelines from your perspectives? I have seen, as we look across the threat landscape and things that we've been covering, that the more research we see, the more a lot of the attacks come back to vulnerabilities for which patches have been available but not applied.
Yeah, I think, it's a bit frustrating to be honest. This is something that I think, so responsible vulnerability disclosure and responsible disclosure, it's not new, right? We've been talking about this for decades in the industry. But unfortunately, as you say, time and time again, as we highlight in the report, vast majority of organizations are under attack from end days. So again, patched vulnerabilities that are 5+ years old, in some cases 10 to 15 years. And these are, again, it's not rocket science, right? It's one thing to be talking about a 0 day that's breaking and you have to halt a production system and put these patches into place. But for something that's been available for that long and you know about, that's a very proactive thing. That's a human solvable problem through process and application. And again, these are um, still methods that work for attackers. I would say what's driving the urgency here is, unfortunately, this is working, right? From an attacker's perspective, we are seeing more higher risk, right? Because of ransomware, particularly financial damages that are caused from outages of retail stores or critical infrastructure and so
Mhm.
forth. Um, and that is a driver. It's a big driver. So and that's also driving not just the urgency, but the timeliness, how we have to be able to get better at this and respond to that. That's why, again, this is becoming more of a, and it's not even there yet the way it should be, but more of a board level conversation as well too. So all of those things combined, I would say.
Yeah. Another theme that caught our attention um, during RSA was the discussion around responsible, radical transparency. Um, Talk a little bit about that and how you see things.
Yeah. So just to be clear, this is multi-element, right? So if we talk about responsible disclosure specifically, again, not new, we've been talking about for decades, but the industry has gotten better at that, right? In terms of whatever it is, bug bounty programs or reports of vulnerabilities that come in and how you acknowledge and credit that and address the issue, have the patch management and hygiene process in place like we talked about. The the responsible radical transparency is a new hot button topic that's very important, right? Because this is about, in my point of view, maturing the industry. So the industry has matured through responsible disclosure over the years. Responsible, radical transparency is accountability. It's taking, being a role model in the industry and acknowledging that every organization has issues and let's talk about it, right? Let's not sweep this under the rug, or make it, make it the elephant in the room. Let's address
Hmm.
this. Let's talk about it. When there is a vulnerability, report, give credit where credit is due. Have timelines on that. Have all the tools. So not just talk. And a big issue in the industry is talking about the problems and not the solutions. We hear the word 0 day thrown around, loosely a lot of the times, incorrectly a lot of the times, getting terminology around that so that we can actually, again, have something that's useful. If the whole industry adopts that and goes towards that, so secure by design is another great example of that. Um, that's uh, that's going to make a massive difference. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the industry is still stuck in this mode of being afraid to come out and talk about these things, or looking at consequences of that, where it really, the mentality needs to shift the other way around, and that's a big part of the culture, security culture, that we need to cultivate.
Hmm. So, the threat landscape is continually evolving. Um, you know, Not much of a surprise there. Threat actors seem to always be getting more and more sophisticated. Let's talk about why this conversation around radical transparency just now is starting to become a hot topic. I am, we do have some rapid developments in the industry. There's a lot of hype around AI for good and for evil. And, we talked about the vulnerability piece, um, but talk about the why now.
I would say it's because there's more visibility on this, which is the right thing. Again, if you look at Fortinet, we publish our PSERT, product security incident response teams, best practices, being open, regular communication. It brings that topic up to the table more, makes people more aware on the practical mitigation and tooling. It's opening up more conversations for that maturity phase. So that's part of the reason of why now. And there's a lot of good reasons for that, because again, as I said, the industry really needs to adopt this and talk about it more. The other part, though, is like you said, the threat landscape, the driver here, right? It's continually evolving. Everything. So remember, from our point of view in the industry and the blue team, we want to impose a cost, right? We want to make security resilient. We want to increase the cost for the adversary. We talk about that all the time. How do we do that? There's a lot of ways. Artificial intelligence is one piece of that, but this responsible transparency that we talk about is actually a really key element of that as well too, right? The more laundry we're airing basically through the industry, and we work together to mitigate those issues, that's how you make security more resilient, and that's going to impose a great cost on the attacker.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, artificial intelligence is a another big conversation. I think I've voiced this before, but I see AI, adding to the resiliency, being actually like the defenders are in a, when you talk about attacks, the defense is usually always um, in the harder position, right? It's harder to play defense than offense. Um, where when we're talking about AI, it actually becomes easier in this case, right? Because attackers are actually using our AI. When I say us, like the industry, right? The tools that have been created, um, the technology. So we have more control over that, and we have the ability to implement this and actually be in an advantage for once, I think.
Yeah. So how do you see the industry embracing some of these tenets? Um, and what does it look like if we get broad adoption of these best practices for vendors, their customers, and the adversary?
So I see um, first of all, I do see the industry adopting this. My heart says that. My experience as well, looking over the years, again, referring to responsible disclosure, to me, this is a no-brainer. I think it is the right direction. Unfortunately, it takes time. So I guess the question is like, how quickly will this happen? I think that's again where we need a lot more players in the industry to get behind this, and that's going to accelerate that. And time is important because again, if we take our time with this and we're talking about 20, 30 or later, um, that's too late. So sort of spinning your question to what does this look like if we don't do it? That's not a good picture, right? I think we're going to be in a much worse position, 6 years from now in 2030 when that happens.
Mhm.
So yeah, by doing this, of course, it's a force multiplier in a good way, right? If we can do this, again, that is going to be a tremendous driver for the resilience of networks and the industry, and again, imposing that cost on the attacker.
So Fortinet and FortiGuard Labs, the team, does a lot of work when it comes to collaborating with partners. Can you dive into the importance of working with prominent industry groups like Cyber Threat Alliance, like CISA, like NIST, and others? And what does that do for the industry as a whole? This is something that has been on my mind because we've heard a lot from the federal government about the threat that China poses and how China has really burrowed into a lot of critical infrastructure and is just lying in wait. And last week in DC, we saw the Department of Defense and several partners doing doing a big cyber exercise, locked shields.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, the importance of the collaboration and how it plays into your strategy right now.
Oh, it's a big piece. It's critical. I think again, this has been something on our FortiGuard Labs public and private partnerships of Fortinet. We've been doing this um, for over 15 years. So that's again, every single element of that is coming together. I would say we even started in you know 2006, almost 20 years ago, on the responsible disclosure end, right? That's how long ago we started with that. But then if we talk about the partnerships, it's really about the ecosystem of disruption, right? Each one of those organizations that you listed and exercises and research papers, operational campaigns that come out of that make a difference, right? If you look at first.org, that's all National Computer Emergency Response, creating tools for their regions, DDoS shelters, ways to take down infrastructure. Cyber Threat Alliance, we talked about this is private sector sharing, how we can not withhold intelligence, but share it on the adversary to elevate that security stack. You mentioned Block Shield, so NATO. This is another exercise we participate in with all the other members. So that's the proactive element, right? The actual real fire drills and simulations of attacks. That's also equally important. World Economic Forum, I talked about the cybercrime atlas, mapping the cyber criminal ecosystem, looking at all these different choke points so we can actually go and have a coordinated disruption attempt to fight back. So all those
Mhm.
elements of reactive to proactive that fall under partnerships. And the encouraging thing is there's more and more partners coming to the table and cross organization partnerships as well, which is important too.
Yeah, vitally important. So we're out of time for now. But Derek, it was great to catch up with you again. And until next time, safe travels, be well. And that goes for our audience. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.